Welcome back to Cocktails and Classics. This week you get a little dad chat. It's just a two-man show this week. Ben and I. I feel like we need a little jingle or something. It's just two dads drinking and watching, talking about movies. I don't know where it goes
Talking
from there.
about movies your dad's probably seen.
Oh, thank you. Hannah said our jingle was great.
Oh, excellent.
All right, every episode when it's dad chat, that'll be it. This week it's just Ben and I, and we watched the Hitchcock classic Rear Window from 1954. To kick things off and get everybody in the right mood, I'm going to go to this week's cocktail, The Rear Window. Did you just do a quick little Google search, Ben, and do
I
Rear
did.
Window
As I
cocktails?
do every week, I look up movie title plus cocktail and see what comes up. Sometimes you strike gold. Sometimes you have to just be like, all right, we can't use any of this, so let's just make something up.
Yeah,
Um,
it's usually I do movie title inspired cocktail.
okay,
Uh,
that's fair.
And I saw one that was kind of wild, which is the one I thought you were talking about, and it had like
This is the one that
passion
had
fruit
like,
syrup.
yeah, no.
So it was like super involved. It's probably actually delicious, but I'm like, none of
Oh,
that's laying around the house.
it looked great, but it's, yeah, look, here's the thing. I have a cabinet full of alcohol. I don't carry many mixers, which, I mean, I have lime juice, lemon juice, simple syrup, kind of some of the basic stuff, bitters.
Yeah. So you can make majority
I
of
can make a
cocktails, I would say.
majority of things. And I don't mind running out to the store if it's like, oh, this needs, like, club soda. Okay, might not have that at the house. Just let me go run and buy it. I'm not going out to the store to try to hunt down passion fruit to make passion fruit syrup.
I don't know if you would find that.
Or, some of the other random stuff that it's like, I'm going to use this one time and then it's going to sit for
There's always things
forever.
that pop up where I'm like, yeah, this would be like, this should just be at, Publix. Go to Publix and I'm like, huh, they don't have pomegranate juice just sitting around?
Crazy. What a crazy thing to not have.
Like, I don't know. Like, some of the stuff is like, I'm like, I feel like this should be at a grocery store since it's a kind of a grocery, but I guess some of it is too niche for the grocery store.
Yeah, so I did some more digging until I found one that was like, oh, hey, wait a minute. I think I went through like 3 or 4 different ones, and I'm like, I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that. And then I found this one, which also had an ingredient I didn't have, but I had something
In the
pretty
same
much
vein.
well, it's literally the same thing. It's just a different brand, right?
Yeah.
So
Um, yeah,
let's dig into it, and then
I was
then
gonna say
I can.
I was trying to go brandy then because they do drink brandy in a couple of scenes. I was
Yeah,
like, oh, brandy, and then finally you were like, yeah, this one. So to make this Rear Window, which it's from greattaste.net, and it was contributed by restaurateur Francis Schott. Um, he says it's a shockingly delicious and refreshing cocktail featuring fresh lemon juice. Uh, Ingredients are 1.5 ounces of fresh lemon juice, 1.5 ounces of simple syrup. Um, might be a little too sweet, but I think that's about like a lemonade ratio, isn't it? Usually like 50-50 sugar
yeah.
to
I'm not gonna
lemon.
lie. I just used like lemonade mix because uh, I didn't want to spend the time making lemonade, which is basically what they did. It's
Oh,
lemonade.
yeah.
It's lemonade. It's lemon juice, sugar, and water. Lemonade.
So 1.5 ounce lemon, 1.5 ounce simple syrup, 2 ounces of water, and then 3/4 of an ounce of Averna brand amaro, which you should be able to find in most liquor stores if you go to. We've never really done anything with amaros technically. I think it's in the same vein as like Campari or
Yeah.
what's the other one I can't think of.
So Aperol is actually
Aperol.
Aperol is an Amaro. It's a brand, but it is technically an Amaro. So that is what I used because I wasn't going to go out and buy a different brand of alcohol when I had one sitting in my house. So yeah, I basically just used it's basically lemonade and amaro. Um, or if you want to get real spicy with it, because you're looking at the ingredients and going, man, for a cocktail to only have 3/4 of an ounce of alcohol in it doesn't seem like it's worth it, right? Cut back on the lemonade. Maybe throw a little vodka in there. Maybe a little
Mm.
lemon vodka. That's what I did.
Oh, okay. All
And
right.
then throw it. Go ahead and throw the Aperol in. It basically tastes like a sweeter kind of citrusy lemonade, if I had
Hmm.
to describe it. Like it's a
Sounds very
little.
summery.
It is. Yeah, it's a very much like a boozy summer drink. I imagine you're not drinking this while watching, your neighbor across the street murder his wife. Spoiler alert.
Maybe. I mean, he could probably tip one of those back during the day when he's sweating
But
his butt off.
but maybe you're drinking one of these on a boat. You know, you're just hanging out with Jimmy Stewart, and you're sitting there on a boat, and you're throwing back some rear windows. Um, it's
Wow.
very delicious. It's very much. It doesn't fit the theme of the movie to me, but hey,
Yeah.
what's in a name?
I think the Averna would probably maybe be better. So I'm looking at like a
Yeah, it
comparison.
looks a little. It looks a little darker.
So Aperol's 11%. And it's like orangey,
Yeah,
vanilla-y. The Averna is 29% ABV, so uh, bit more strong, but it says it has a mouth coating and bittersweet taste, carrying hints of orange and licorice, balanced with notes of myrtle, juniper berries, rosemary, and sage. So it seems like it's kind of herby, like cola-y
yeah.
almost.
Okay,
But it still has like the hints of orange. So
orange. Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe when I'm out of Aperol, maybe that'll be the next one. Maybe I'll try a bottle of that.
Check the show notes below. Make yourself a rear window and tell us what you think. Hit up the Drizzly and Casker links below to get yourself some Averna Amaro delivered directly to your door. Well, you can't watch Rear Window anywhere right now, but it will be available soon, I'm sure. Um, Probably on HBO Max because they love like the Turner Classic movie type stuff.
I'm surprised there's not like a streaming service that has all of the like Hitchcock library. And you'd think it would be HBO with Turner Classics, seeing as isn't Turner Classics like logo literally Hitchcock?
Yeah, I think it is like the outline of him.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
You would.
So they do have North by Northwest right now. I see. I'm like scrolling through like all the movies he's done.
I feel like they kind of cycle through, but I'm surprised that they just don't have like his
Yeah, you think that would be like a
like
selling
catalog.
point. Yeah,
Yeah,
but maybe the people who loved Hitchcock are all dying. So
yeah. I know at least one person who went to college with us that loved Hitchcock.
I mean, I don't get me wrong. I do love me some Hitchcock. It's definitely definitely of a different time, but very very good like classic movies. Rear Window is a 1954 mystery thriller. Currently sits at an 8.5 out of 10 on IMDb, making it number 50 on the top 250. Stars James Stewart, Grace Kelly, Wendell Corey, Thelma Ritter. It was directed by Alfred Hitchcock, written by John Michael Hayes, who wrote the screenplay based on the short story by Cornell Woolrich. It's the story of a wheelchair-bound photographer who spies on his neighbors from his Greenwich Village courtyard apartment window and becomes convinced one of them has committed murder, despite the skepticism of his fashion model girlfriend. It was nominated for 4 Oscars: Best Director, Best Writing, Best Cinematography Color, and Best Sound Recording. Don't know what the recording part of the sound is. I assume color is colored versus black and white film, but it did not win any of those categories,
Hmm.
which is interesting because I would like to know what won that year.
For the Academy Awards in 1955.
Yeah.
Oh.
Uh, wow. Like, it's funny because most of the categories are split up. So it was like best costume design, color, best costume design, black and white. So like every category. Um, on the Waterfront won
Okay,
best
that's fair.
director, which is interesting because it's historically is I feel like not as highly regarded as Rear Window. It's also a little bit lower on the top 250 at 178. So,
Hmm.
had you seen this movie before, Ben?
I had not. No. I feel like this is one of those movies that, like, a lot of them that I see that are like classic movies, and I'm like, man, I'm surprised it took me this long to watch this. Also, another one of those movies that I finished and went, damn, maybe I really like Alfred Hitchcock movies. Maybe
Maybe
I'm
I
that.
should start spouting the
Maybe,
gospel at the
yeah.
dining hall desk.
Maybe I'm that guy. Maybe I should have listened to the gospel sooner. You know, just taking it into my heart. Yeah, it's another movie that I watched and I was like, man, for what, for in the time period that this movie was made in, and what they could and couldn't do, it's a pretty good suspense movie. Like it does a pretty solid job, and you're like, wow. You would think that when you hear the premise of the movie, a man thinks he may have witnessed a murder while spying on his neighbor. You think, okay, it can't be that good. Then you go to watch it and you're like, wow, actually, yeah, you kind of get a little bit of a feeling of suspense and like
Oh man,
understanding.
the last like 15 minutes of the movie are like
Yeah,
stressful.
yeah, get out of the house.
Yeah, you're just like, but what are you doing? Just why are you in there?
Where did you go? Why are you not hiding?
Oh my god, yeah. And then like when he busts back in the place and he's like using the flash bulbs, but they're only single use.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just- the best is just like the guy. You think the guy would know where he's walking to? It just close his eyes.
yeah, like
He just
once you
keeps
get
walking
flashed
in.
once,
Like he just keeps walking into it. Like what are you doing?
it is
Come
funny
on
because
now,
it doesn't
man.
really do much. Like he just gets flashed and his eyes like take a second to readjust.
Yeah, and the other guy's in a wheelchair, so he's not going any. Like he has no offense. He's just playing defense with flash bulbs.
Well, I'm surprised he never like swung it at any point when the guy was like close. You
Well,
wouldn't
I
you like
mean,
use it as a baton? It's probably like one of those. You remember those like I mean maybe it's just me because I grew up in like a military household, but like the flashlights that have like the 90-degree angle in them. Like I'm sure it's like similar to that in a sense. Like
yeah,
it's probably like
almost like a mag light.
stronger than aluminum I would imagine.
Well, you'd also think he's got to have something else that he could throw or do anything. Or here's an idea: you wheeled all the way to the door, and your thought wasn't, "Is there a way to lock this door?"
Dude, he never locked his door the entire time, and I'm like, everyone's just knocking and walking in. Like I get like you're in a wheelchair, but like still, you think if you were in a wheelchair, you'd be a little bit more like cautious.
Yeah, maybe it's just the post 9/11 era we live in, where it's like make sure everything's locked up tight, like it's Fort Knox in your personal life, in
Yeah.
your house. But that dude just, yeah, no. You literally heard the guy coming, and your thought wasn't, I know, I should lock the door. It was, I know, let me grab my flash bulbs so I can temporarily blind him and hope to God that someone shows up in time. Like, come on, man.
Ugh, and then they like go to the wrong side of the like they go to the apartment over in the courtyard, and he's just like Lisa,
Lisa, help me.
save me. Um,
What I like is the fact that literally it's like he's hanging from like the second story. It doesn't look like he would like basically what would suck the most the fact that his leg is already broken. He
yeah,
might re-break his leg if he falls. But that fall is
which
not going to kill him.
spoiler alert, it
Which, yeah, spoiler alert,
does
he
break
breaks his other
both
leg.
his legs. Both.
Which just goes to show you how even back in 1954 the cops were useless.
Oh my gosh. I had seen this one before. I feel like I watched it in college for a class.
Makes sense.
but I had gone on like a little bit of a Hitchcock tear for a while. I had done like I did like Vertigo. We did North by Northwest on the podcast. I saw Psycho. I saw Dial M for Murder. Um, The Man Who Knew Too Much, I believe. No, that's not the one I saw. I saw the
Same.
39 Steps. That's the one I saw.
Okay.
So I had kind of gotten I got a little bit of like a taste of all the whatever all like the Hitchcock kind of like thrillery mystery stuff. So going back and watching this one again, I was kind of like, is it gonna have the same effect on me? And I think it does. I think it's stressful, like I said, for the last 15 minutes, but so much of the film, there's a lot of the movie actually, I will say, that is like not not have to do too much with that plot of like him staring out the window and like figuring out his thing. Like um Thelma Ritter, I believe, is the actress's. I can't think of her name, the character's name, Stella, who like keeps coming in to take care of him, and like
Yeah.
they're talking about like, oh, his relationship with Lisa Fremont, or you know um all stuff with Lisa Fremont where they're like, no, we should be together. No, we shouldn't be together because we're from different classes of society, and you couldn't lug around a suitcase and live out of it for months. It's like, all right, well, this is cool and all, but how about we get back to the thing about the
Yeah,
serial killer next door?
there was a lot of background information that wasn't wholly necessary to the main plot,
Yeah,
but I mean, look, when you've got a uh, a 2-hour movie to fill, I mean, realistically, the plot is man kills wife, other man sees, but isn't sure. I mean, that's realistically kind of most of it until the last 15 minutes, and then a bunch of stuff happens. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I guess it's more so like the last 20 or so minutes, but still, it's just like, oh. Also, I wanted to bring up the point where it's just like, he thinks he knows what's going on. The only proof they have is the wedding ring that was found, but like, there's really no, like, hard evidence of what's going on until Thorwald
to kill.
tries to kill him, and then it's
Yeah,
like, after he tries to drop him out the window, he's just like, oh yeah, Thorwald wants to take us on a on a tour of the river. Basically, he's just like, he just confesses to everything. They have one small piece of circumstantial evidence, and he's just like, oh, I did it, all. I buried her I buried her head in the flower garden, but the dog was digging it, so I killed the dog, and then I moved the head. It's like, dude, you cracked. You cracked after being asked 0 questions.
yeah. I think a big thing of it was that it was like that they kind of acted like they knew. They were like, "Oh, we're coming for you," or like, "What'd you do with her?" And so I feel like that was the thing that was like, "Oh no, they're on to me. They know so much," or whatever. And kind of like, I think when he kind of like acts like he knows everything going on, like when he's like marching towards him to come strangle him, I feel like that's like where he kind of is like, "Oh shit, yeah, this was not great." Um, but yeah, he is just like he's legit just like, yeah, no, I did it all. Oopsies.
Also, when Jeff phones his cop buddy and then gets the call back, and without answering or saying like hello or asking who it is, he just immediately starts spurting out about how, how the suspect's not there, and like, he's not there, go to the apartment now, and then no one is on the other part of the line, and he's like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. Like, oh my god. At least they made it kind of like an honest thing though, because I guess to the same point, if I were watching this movie and Jeff handled everything like an expert, being that he's a fucking magazine photographer,
Yeah.
I'd also be kind of like, come on, really? You expect me to believe that this dude who takes pictures for a living knows how to handle a murder investigation? So I guess I should give it credit there, where it's like, hey, he's kind of a moron when it comes to doing this. but at the same time, it makes sense because he's not a fucking police officer. He's not a detective. He's just a man with a camera in a window.
Yeah, and I feel like they kind of glance over like some of the humor elements to the movie, like when he's talking to the guy who's like his editor. He's like, "Yeah, you said you wanted something different." He's like, "Well, I didn't ask you to stand in the road, take the photo."
Yeah, I didn't ask you to stand in the middle of the racetrack. Like, all right, fair
Um,
point.
because he like it glances over at the like intro and like shows like some of his photos that like oh he's a photographer and the one is just like a car crashing at the camera. You're like oh,
Huh. Huh. At least he hopefully was paid well for that.
well, apparently not. Apparently he only lives paycheck to paycheck. But then he's like oh I friggin' oh, God, what does he say? He's like, oh, like I was like in some war and like all these like all this stuff about like photographing things. And I'm like, what the hell, dude? You're only getting paycheck to paycheck.
Although, I mean, it is kind of a cool thing about Jimmy Stewart. I don't know if have we ever done a movie with Jimmy Stewart?
Uh, was he in North by Northwest?
No, I think that was Cary Grant.
Oh yeah, you're right. I don't think so.
So, all right, kind of a cool story. Jimmy Stewart was an amateur pilot, and then during World War II, volunteered and enlisted in the Air Force. So he actually was a colonel in the Air Force and won a couple awards, like medals, service awards, and that. He was then promoted to be a brigadier general in the Air Force in 1959.
Hmm.
So in 1959, during the middle of the war, so he was doing a couple movies in the 30s, and then went to war, and then came back and continued acting. Like, kind of a pretty baller fucking dude. Like, he retired. Oh, it says here he retired in 1968 from the Air Force. So he was technically still
Wow.
in the Air Force all the way through his acting career.
I was gonna say like most of the big films he did.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, did you think that it was true that he witnessed this murder, or like, were you just waiting for them to like find a piece of evidence, or?
So I will say I definitely think it was one of those things where because it's like I very much doubted that the entire movie was going to lead to it being a giant like, oh, no, everything's fine, you're just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Although that would be the most baller Hitchcock MacGuffin ever, to be at the end of the movie to be like, oh, you found the wedding, like the wife's wedding ring or whatever. They go to arrest him, and then like two
The
days
wife shows
later,
back.
the wife shows up and is like, oh my god, I lost my wedding ring. I couldn't find yada yada yada. And it's just like, oh, this whole thing was just. I think that could be done more today than it could have in 1954.
Yeah.
Like, I think it could be done today where it just turns out that like Jeff is suffering from like cabin fever. He's not getting out. Like, he's starting to just make things up. And it actually be that he's making things up versus in 1954 it was like, is he making things up? No, no, no. There's actually he did witness a killing happen. But yeah, I think just kind of knowing like for the time, I couldn't imagine this movie being such a classic if it was just like, yeah, he didn't see anything.
Gotcha.
He's just loopy. He's just a crazy guy.
I kind of like I had forgotten like what happened. I was like, did, is it all just made up? And then I was like, no, there's so much movie left. Like it's obvious. I was like,
Yeah,
there's still like 30 minutes. Something happens.
and haven't they made this movie like haven't they remade this movie several times?
I think they remade it at least once, like a actual
I know,
adaptation.
I know
But
Christopher Reeve was in a remake,
there was
but I think that was just like maybe like a TV. Maybe they've only done TV remakes of it.
I know like what do you call it? Like Disturbia with Shia LaBeouf is like
Very
definitely
similar.
inspired by this.
Yeah,
Um,
there's one of um like the woman in the window or whatever that's kind of similar but not the same. Although I think that one was based on a movie that came out before.
what's the other? Fright Night. It's kind of similar. Like it's like a '80s horror movie, like
Okay.
comedy horror basically. But it's like he sees he thinks the person next door to him is a vampire.
I feel like there's been a lot where it's like, oh, I think the person who lives next door to me is a serial killer or is a murderer. And it's like, sometimes it comes out being true, sometimes not so much. But yeah, I feel like I've seen that. And again, I don't know if this was the first one or if this is just kind of one that kind of came out later. Although I don't know. This says it was based on a short story from 1942. So I'm sure this was probably one of the first ones. Yeah, I mean, it's always cool to go back and see one of the ones that kind of starts the tropes and trends of like the
Spying on
thinking
your
you
neighbors.
thinking you saw something that maybe you did or didn't see. I feel like we've all been there, right? Where we've seen like something that we've thought is like, "Oh, I definitely saw this thing."
Oh, I thought you were gonna say we've all been there, like spying on our neighbors. I was
No.
like, huh, yeah.
No. We've all been there where like we've thought we've saw something and then we kind of got worked up about it and then, you later find out that like it's not at all what you thought it was.
So my apartment is like it's like the first one when you enter the courtyard of our complex. So we're always looking out like our living room window at the courtyard, and we're like, wonder who those people are. What are they doing here? Do they live here? I've never seen that person before. What are you doing?
Yeah, classic Dylan. Immediately judging strangers.
Well, our gate doesn't work. Like like yeah, you have to like tap into the gate. That doesn't work. So people just shove their way in, and I'm like, hmm. Puts my radar on high.
Make sure you lock those doors or, you know, keep some flash bulbs handy.
Well, it's
Got to
just a
be
big
ready.
glass. It's a big glass, sliding glass door. So I'm like, what's really the safety features here? How far does a lock go?
Got to get a one of those thick either broomstick handles or pieces of wood that you just kind of
Ben, a rock would go through the glass. That's
I
more my
mean,
point.
it would have to be a pretty big fucking rock or you'd have to have a fucking major league pitcher throwing it.
I
Like
don't
those
know. Is there? You think they're that
those
thick?
double pane glass doors are I can't imagine that they sell those and are like, "Oh yeah, these are easily breakthrough."
All right, we're looking up how strong are sliding glass doors. All right, pros and cons. Smart and chic. No need for artificial light. They're practical. They create an illusion of more space. They're energy efficient, eco friendly. They're vulnerable to extreme weather. Although you can install locks on sliding glass doors, they're not as strong as the latches drilled into wooden doors. Glass can be a liability when it comes to protecting your home from intruders. They're difficult to maintain. Damn it, you have to clean your glass door a lot.
Because I mean, realistically, you could say the same thing about a fucking window.
I do say the same thing about windows. If you want to get into somewhere, Ben, I think it's
Oh,
more
I
about the
mean,
will to get in than it is
I
the.
mean that's 100%. Look, there's no such thing as 100% security unless you're gonna live with glass bars on your glass bars.
Those aren't unsafe either.
I've got glass bars on my windows. Nothing will break through this unless you've got like steel bars on your windows. And I mean, I don't even realistically, depending on the door, like a yeah, I know normally the door jams and that and the strike plates are a lot stronger on the heavy wooden doors, but you could still kick in a fucking wooden door if someone was strong enough. Seeing as it's just the two of us, maybe I'll pull up some IMDb trivia, see if there's anything cool to see.
It was kind of funny, like I don't know how, not necessarily like racy, but like how pushing the edge of like 1955 this movie was when it came to like different things.
Oh, like the lady
Like
dancing, like
yeah, what was her
practically
name? Miss
nude.
Miss Torso.
That was the other thing I liked. How they didn't actually give names for anyone. He just nicknamed all of his neighbors.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you got to think. What do they call him? Like, oh, there's Mister Pervert up in the window with his camera.
Old Peepin' Tom.
Um, so you mentioned how On the Waterfront won the Academy Award that year. Interesting fun fact: Grace Kelly was offered a role in this movie and On the Waterfront at the same time. She chose this movie because she thought the role of Lisa, who worked in the world of fashion, much like Grace Kelly did, suited her better. Interesting.
I think she actually won Best Actress that year. Grace Kelly won Best Actress in a leading role that year for The Country Girl with Bing Crosby.
Also, pretty cool that she became a real life princess.
Did she?
Yeah, she married the Prince of Monaco.
Wow.
Yeah. Also crazy that she was like just a famous actress and then was just like, oh yeah. Also, now I'm the Princess of Monaco. Like, all right, cool. Pretty
Well, I
baller
mean,
move.
what
Baller
about Meghan
move.
Markle?
I mean, yeah,
She's
only.
not the princess, but like she also is now royalty.
Is she?
Technically, I believe yes. I believe she is a duchess.
I thought they gave up their
Oh,
whatever nonsensical titles. Something that was kind of interesting with this movie that we didn't talk about, and I'm glad I just read about it. The fact that there was no like score or anything in the movie that was like overplaying, it was all just from the movie, you know.
hmm.
Um,
Like the
outside of
music and the
outside of like the very beginning of the movie, like the first couple of shots, I think is like you first see the people in the building across the way. They're kind of dancing as you hear like an orchestra playing. But after that, there's no like overarching like orchestra music or anything. Everything kind of comes in. It's all sound from the world of the movie. Music playing like on the radio or people talking or sounds of like the streets and that coming through. It's kind of a cool thing.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's something you don't really notice, but that was like at the end I was like, I just read it and I was like, yeah, now that I think about it, there was not any, like music playing over, there was no real score or anything like that. Kind of an interesting thing to do.
I the thing I was going to talk about earlier was that I saw that the film negative was damaged considerably as a result of the color dye fading as early as the 1960s, and so nearly all of the yellow images that had, or all of the yellow dyes that were put on there had faded. And even though, despite fears that the film had been irrevocably damaged, preservation experts were able to restore the film to nearly its original coloration, which is
God.
pretty amazing to think about. I think one of the things that was like a little odd was like the colors in the one of the skirts that Grace Kelly wears was
Yeah.
super weird. Like the green skirt was a little odd, but I mean, other than that, you don't really notice
Mm-mm.
any issues with that. The other one I saw was that the entire movie was shot on one set, which required months of planning and construction. The apartment courtyard set measured 98 feet wide, 180 feet long, and 40 feet high, and consisted of 31 apartments, 8 of which were completely furnished. The courtyard was set 20 to 30 feet below stage level, and some of the buildings were the equivalent of 5 or 6 stories high. This movie was quickly shot on the heels of Die a Limb for Murder from 1953 to January 1954. November 1954.
Yeah, I thought it was in like I couldn't imagine that they actually went and didn't film this like on like a stage or a sound stage, but God, how elaborate that set must have been built for. But realistically, I mean, yeah, you don't really see much outside of the courtyard and across the way. So,
Yeah, it's like just that bar, like through that gap.
oh man, Cameron's gonna be so butthurt he wasn't here for this. The flash that Jimmy Stewart's character uses as he's trying to blind the guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same unit that would end up being used as the
Oh,
body of
of
Luke
this
Skywalker's
lightsaber.
lightsaber
Yeah,
in
the
Star Wars.
Banes.
Yeah.
I did notice that when I was watching. I was like, oh wait, that looks so familiar.
Ah. Yeah. This is where it all started. The Star Wars journey starts here in 1954.
Yeah, I see that it says like 1,000 arc lights were used to simulate sunlight. And thanks to an extensive pre-lighting of the set, the crew could make a changeover from day to night in under 45 minutes. Most people are probably like, "Oh, that's not that interesting," but it takes a long time to change lighting on a set.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
So for 45 minutes to change the entire studio over is pretty crazy.
Also, thought this was interesting. In the short story that the movie's based on, it's not revealed until the last line that the main character has a broken leg.
That is kind of I saw
How
that and
weird would that have made the movie if you're just like, why is this dude just constantly in his apartment? And then, like, that's the M. Night Shyamalan twist, is that his leg is broken. That's why he's always staring out the window.
yeah, I'm wondering like how that affects the story. Like I guess because if it's if the story's written in first person or whatever, I guess you just would never have to like explain that because it would just be like it's.
Yeah.
I had seen this film, but Ben hadn't. So Ben's gonna give you a fresh rating of Rear Window, and I will give you an updated rating after having seen it for the first time in probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Like I said, this is another movie that I watch and I go, man, I feel like there's more. Like, I know, like, Vertigo, Dial M for. I feel like those are movies now that, like, I need to sit down and just watch them all. Finding time to do that is another problem entirely. But again, it's a movie that I finished watching and I go, man, I enjoyed that. Do I think it was, like, the best movie I've ever seen? No. No. I think it was really good, and I take into consideration, you know, some of the aspects that they were limited in doing in that time, and the fact that they were able to build suspense from what, I mean, realistically, you talk about 45 minutes of the movie that's actually like built around the plot. You know, there's not really a lot that goes on that keeps you there, but you're watching throughout the entire thing and you want to know what's going on and you want to find out what happened. And the fact that they were able to do that was really impressive to me. I gave this movie a 7 out of 10. I think it's really good. Like I said, it makes me want to go on a Hitchcock binge and check some things out. I recommend it. If you haven't seen it, give it a little bit, hopefully.
I was gonna say, did you notice Hitchcock in the movie?
Oh, yeah.
His little cameo that he always does.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that one. Um, that's always a fun game you can also play in Hitchcock movies. You can always try to look for him.
Find his little. This one was pretty obvious though, because he was like in the musician's apartment
I was gonna say he's in the
and just like
musician's
turns
apartment,
towards
like
the camera.
he like deadpans the camera. He just spikes the lens real quick. Just like, hold on, let me make sure I see what's going on.
just smiling and waving. It was almost a Stanley-esque cameo there. Man, that Spider Man, he's crazy.
But yeah, no, I'd say give it a shot. Check it out. And if you like it, and you're like me, maybe you're gonna see it and decide maybe you need to check out more. So
Going in, I had given this movie an 8 out of 10. I remember really enjoying it. The suspense, the thriller. I'd always loved Disturbia growing up because I'm kind of a Shia LaBeouf fan. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that anymore.
Nope. I don't think you are.
But this movie, I saw this after seeing that, and it hits on the same nerve. I don't know, like this is gonna be weird, but like I don't know, movies of like voyeurism and that sort of thing kind of like pique my interest because it's kind of like a natural instinct to kind of like people watch and be like, huh, wonder what's going on over there. So those kind of movies always interest me, I guess, because I feel like it's that idea of like, oh, if I people watch, I'm gonna like discover something, or like, maybe you see something you don't know. Like, for instance, what was it? At one point, they kind of get embarrassed when they're watching. It's Miss Lonely Heart, right? Um,
Yeah.
and she has the young guy come back from the bar with her, and then he's like forcing himself on her, and she's like shoves him out, and it's like, ooh, maybe that was a little too private. And it's like, really, not any of the other stuff you've seen. It's that one is where you draw the line. But going out of the second viewing, I'm gonna leave it at an 8 out of 10. I think it's wonderfully done. It's almost like methodically done. Some of the ways that like it's this big set it's built and all this lighting, all this like the camera movements of panning over like every apartment and seeing what's going on in each one. They do that a couple times. I think James Stewart is he's just so like charismatic, and I feel like he pulls you in as is Jeff
Yeah. It's like
Jeffries
JB. Yeah, everyone calls him,
LB
I feel like,
Jeffries.
Jeff. Yeah,
Yeah.
LB.
Um, but I think he's very charismatic and pulls you in. I mean, the Grace Kelly like romances, it's there. It's not like an important part of the movie, but like, she's kind of like the Watson to his Sherlock Holmes. If I'm like pulling way out of left field for a reference, but yeah, I don't know. And then like the last 15 minutes is just so stressful when they like try to pull away the villain, and he goes to the hotel or whatever, and they try to dig up, and it's like, oh no, we didn't find anything, go into the apartment, oh you gotta leave, he's coming, and the cops arrest her, and the villain comes over because he notices uh Jeffrey's spying, and you're just like, oh god, you're on. Like I could imagine watching this in 1954, probably never seeing anything quite like this and being like, holy shit.
Yeah, one of those like I said, when you're watching Grace Kelly and she's going through she all of a sudden she climbs up into the apartment and you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This was not in the plan. And then you see her rooting around and she's looking for stuff, and then you see Lars Thornwall start walking towards the door. Yeah, I can imagine just that feeling of like, get out of the house, get out of the house, get out of the house. What are you doing? And then you see him walk in and she's just gone. You're like, oh, okay. Maybe she found a place to hide. They're gonna wait till they kind of like, oh, he's gonna call the cops, and then once the police get there and he's dealing with the police, maybe she can try to escape that way. She can find a way out then. And then it's just like, no. Then all of a sudden she's just hops out of wherever she was hiding
Yeah.
from.
Well, I feel like she was just hiding behind that door or something, or like that half wall, and then
Yeah,
like when he turned around, he noticed her. But
yeah. No, I mean, I could definitely understand in that. I feel like you see that in movies now, where you're just like, you see that happening, you're like, you got to get out of there. Like, don't stay.
it's the moment when people start talking to the movie.
Yep, 100%.
You're like, get out! What are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Why are you still in there? Get out of there. He's coming. He's right behind. He's right behind you.
Dad Chat episode 1 in the books.
Uh, yeah, this has been two dads talking about movies your dad probably loves.
Uh, thanks for tuning in this week. Check us out next week as we take a look at another movie. Maybe we'll have 4 goobs. Maybe it'll be another dad chat. Check the show notes below. Hit up the Drizzling Casker links. Make yourself a rear window, get some Averna delivered directly to your door by using the Drizzling and Casker links below. We get a little kickback from that. Check out some past episodes. Leave us a review wherever you listen. It really helps us out. Share us with your friends and family. And as always, watch responsibly.